From the moment he was born, Louis Thomas Buffon entered a world most children never even glimpse. His first breaths were drawn not in silence, but in the echo of stadium roars that had followed his father, Louis Buffon, for decades. Cameras didn't need to discover him. He was already the son of one of football's greatest legends. Born under a spotlight he never asked for, but would inevitably grow into. Even as a child, people whispered his name with a strange mixture of curiosity and expectation. Would he follow in his father's footsteps? Would he live up to the Buffon legacy? Or would he try to build a life entirely different from the golden path already laid before him? Growing up in Italy with a last name that carried so much weight meant that Louis never experienced ordinary days. His childhood driveway wasn't filled with plastic toys or bicycles. It was often lined with luxury SUVs and sleek performance cars that belonged to world-class athletes, designers, and visiting icons. His father's circle included champions, actors, and global celebrities, and Louis was the quiet child standing by the doorway, watching powerful people greet his father like royalty. He didn't understand fame yet, but he understood presence. Every room Louis walked into changed, and Louis absorbed it without ever saying a word. But behind the fame, behind the cameras, Louis had something far more valuable than wealth. He had access. Access to football academies before most kids even touched a ball. Access to private training sessions with elite coaches. Access to world perspectives, luxury travel, and experiences that shaped him in ways no classroom could. While the world wondered whether he'd become a goalkeeper like his father, Louis quietly studied every detail of the sport. The way defenders shifted their body weight. The way strikers read the goalkeeper's shoulders. The way pressure changed the decisions players made. His mind, even at a young age, absorbed football like a second language. But Louis's upbringing wasn't just stadiums and training grounds. His father was one of football's highest earners for decades, and that brought with it a lifestyle most kids could never dream of. Louis grew up between mansion-spacious estates with gardens, big enough to feel like parks and interiors filled with art, rare memorabilia, and custom-designed furniture. He visited his mother, Alina Aradova's world too, a world of modeling elegance, high fashion, and a different type of spotlight, one softer and more glamorous than the sporting world. From her, Louis learned poise, discipline, and the ability to stay composed even when the world is watching. What shaped him most, however, wasn't the luxury, but the duality of his parents' success. His father was the fierce competitor, the titan of Italian football. His mother was the calm, graceful presence who taught him to navigate fame without losing himself. Between these two worlds, Louis learned a rare balanced ambition without arrogance, confidence without noise, and a quiet strength that many young athletes never develop. As he grew older, Louis started showing his own identity. He wasn't just Buffon's son anymore. He was Louis, the boy who trained early in the morning, who studied tactics after school, who wanted to prove perhaps to himself more than to the world that he was unchasing his father's shadow but building something uniquely his. Coaches who worked with him often said he had something they couldn't teach: composure. He didn't break under pressure. He didn't get distracted by expectations. He worked consistently, able to focus in a way that reminded many people of his father's legendary mindset. His lifestyle naturally reflected the privilege he was born into, but Louis himself never behaved like someone fueled by excess. Sure, he traveled in private jets for family vacations, stayed in five-star resorts, and spent summers in locations that most only see in magazines: Capri, Monte Carlo, Lake Como, Paris, Dubai. But even in those environments, he was never the loud, flashy presence. He was the observer, the learner, the quiet future being shaped in the background of some of the most luxurious places on earth. His father's influence extended beyond football. Louis Buffon is one of the smartest financial planners among former players, with investments in luxury businesses, real estate, and high-end ventures. Louis grew up surrounded by business discussions, contracts, negotiations, and advisors. By the time he was a teenager, he understood the difference between a home and an investment property. He knew how assets were grown, how long-term wealth worked, and why reputation could be as valuable as money. These were lessons many footballers learned too late, but Louis was hearing them at dinner time. Louis also lived through the emotional side of fame. He witnessed paparazzi outside his home, online speculation, headlines exaggerating harmless moments, and the intense scrutiny that comes with being part of a famous family. Instead of resenting it, he learned how to stay grounded. His father always told him, "Fame is a tool, not a destination. Use it, don't chase it." And Louis took that to heart. As Louis entered his mid-teens, something shifted. He wasn't just training, he was excelling. Youth coaches talked about his strong game intelligence, his elegance on the ball, his ability to anticipate plays before they developed. While many expected him to become a goalkeeper, Louis gravitated toward outfield play, expressing himself, reading the pitch, and creating plays with a calm confidence that felt more like a chess grandmaster than a teen footballer. Observers began whispering, He doesn't need to be his father. He can be his own story. His public appearances, though rare, always sparked interest. Fashion brands quietly reached out, sensing a future face of Italian elegance. Luxury magazines photographed him at events with his mother. Football fans watched his early training clips with curiosity. A new generation was starting to follow him not because of his father, but because Louis had an aura many young talents don't possess, a uniqueness, a quiet magnetism. There's something special that can't be manufactured. Louis's lifestyle now exists in a blend of legacy and self-made aspiration. He attends exclusive football academies and private schools. He moves between European luxury cities with ease. He is fluent in the aesthetic of modern luxury sleek architecture, minimalist fashion, quiet wealth. He has a life of comfort, but also one of discipline. And he knows better than most that privilege alone is not enough to build a future. With a father whose net worth is estimated above $25 to $30 million, Louis grew up in financial security. But Louis is not the type to rely on inheritance. He wants to build a career, a name, a legacy that stands beside his father's, not beneath it. Those who know him say he carries this internal mission quietly, almost stubbornly, determined to prove that destiny is something he shapes, not something he inherits. And as he moves deeper into the world of professional football, one thing becomes clear. Louis Thomas Buffon is stepping out of the shadow and into his own spotlight, not with noise, not with arrogance, but with a calm confidence that makes people look closer and wonder how far this young man is going to go. What most people never realized is that Louis's journey wasn't crafted overnight. Behind every calm expression, behind every elegant touch on the ball, there were years of silent discipline. He wasn't the type of child who complained about early training sessions or long tactical drills. He embraced them. It was as if he instinctively understood that carrying the Buffon name meant carrying both honor and responsibility. And he treated that responsibility with more maturity than boys twice his age. When Louis trained, he didn't train like a teenager, he trained like a young professional. His father made sure of that, but not in the way people imagine. Gianluigi never forced his son into football, never pressured him to become a goalkeeper, never demanded that Louis continue the legacy. Instead, he approached it differently, guiding him through philosophy. Whatever you choose, choose it fully, his father told him. That sentence became a quiet mantra in Louis's mind. He didn't play football because he had to. He played because he wanted to. And that difference so small, yet so powerful became the foundation of everything he built. Louis spent hours studying games, not the glamorous highlights, but the invisible details analysts obsess over. The timing of a press, the shape of a defensive line, the rhythm of a build-up, the psychology of a striker facing a keeper in a one-on-one. He absorbed knowledge like a sponge. Coaches were stunned by his football IQ, especially at his age. It was the kind of intelligence that couldn't be taught, only inherited or earned through countless hours of observation. Louis had both. But while football molded him, lifestyle shaped him. Louis grew up traveling across Europe, not as a tourist, but as someone who understood how culture builds identity. Summers in Monaco taught him elegance and the language of quiet luxury. Stays in Paris with his mother immersed him in high fashion, structure, and a sense of style rare for a boy his age. Winters in Turin showed him the gritty beauty behind Italy's football culture. Trips to Dubai exposed him to modern opulence, innovation, and global ambition. Every place carved a different layer into the young Buffon, giving him a worldview richer than most adults ever experience. By his mid-teens, Louis was living what many would call a dream life: private schooling, elite training environments, access to mentorship from legendary players, invitations to VIP sporting events, and a personal wardrobe influenced by Italian luxury fashion houses. He favored tailored fits, minimalist palettes, and high-end streetwear, and he carried himself with a confidence that made even adults take a second look. Yet he remained grounded, always aware that image without substance meant nothing. That grounding came from witnessing the highs and lows of fame firsthand. Louis saw how the public adored his father, and how quickly they criticized him during difficult seasons. He saw how online narratives were twisted, how private family stories were sometimes misrepresented, how a single rumor could become a headline within hours. Many young people raised in such an environment become defensive or rebellious. But Louis developed something different: emotional intelligence. He learned when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. He learned that privacy was not a luxury, it was a shield. Financially, the Buffon family lived in a realm few people understand. Between Gianluigi's career earnings, brand deals, real estate empire, and partnerships, Louis never lacked anything. The family owned properties across Italy, luxury estates with pools, gyms, cinema rooms, and breathtaking views of the Italian countryside. There were apartments in Paris connected to the fashion world, modern penthouse spaces in Turin, and quiet getaway homes perfect for summers on the coast. Louis moved through these worlds naturally, not flaunting them but absorbing their beauty. He knew the value of comfort, but he also knew the importance of humility. Luxury cars were another part of the Buffon environment. Louis grew up around a rotating collection of Italian supercars, powerful SUVs, and custom vehicles tailored to his father's taste. He wasn't an impulsive child begging for expensive things. If anything, he was the opposite. He appreciated design and engineering, the elegance and history behind brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Maserati. Even before he was old enough to drive, he understood why certain models were iconic. He appreciated them not as status symbols, but as pieces of art. What most people didn't see was Louis's evolving mindset. While he admired the luxury around him, he never became attached to it. He lived in houses most people only see in magazines, yet he remained focused on the pitch. He flew in business class and private jets, yet he cared more about improving his first touch than showing off a lifestyle. That balance became his quiet superpower. As he grew taller, stronger, and more confident, Louis began attracting attention online. Fans created speculative highlight reels, posting early training clips and trying to predict what position he would play. Some expected him to be a goalkeeper like Gianluigi, but Louis chose a different path. He wanted to create, not stop. He wanted to orchestrate the game, not just react to it. His technical elegance and calmness in possession made him a natural midfield presence, though he could adapt anywhere his coaches needed him. This decision shifted narratives. No longer was he seen as Buffon's heir, he was becoming Louis Thomas Buffon, the rising outfield talent, and suddenly, scouts began paying closer attention. Not because of his name, but because of his potential. Off the pitch, Louis's social circle evolved to he had friends from wealthy Italian families, children of footballers, emerging European talents, and kids from normal backgrounds he bonded with at school. Yet he remained selective about who he allowed in his inner world. Fame had taught him early that trust was rare, and he protected his peace fiercely. His teenage years introduced him to another form of luxury, freedom. Weekends spent in lakefront villas with friends, quiet dinners at exclusive Italian restaurants, late-night conversations about dreams, legacy, and purpose. Louis wasn't living recklessly, he was living thoughtfully, understanding that each experience shaped the man he was becoming. And with all this came a growing sense of responsibility. Louis often reflected on how many young players around the world would give anything to have his opportunities. He didn't want to waste them. He didn't want to be a headline without substance. He wanted to be the kind of player whose success felt earned, not inherited. His work ethic intensified. He spent extra hours in the gym, working on strength and agility. He did specialized sessions to improve vision, passing accuracy, and ball retention. He embraced nutritional discipline, sleep optimization, and mental conditioning in common priorities for boys his age. Trainers noticed he was different, focused, mature, driven by something internal rather than external. This internal drive became even more important as Louis started stepping into the public eye. Photos of him at events with his parents surfaced more frequently. Football fans debated his future. Fashion pages highlighted his style. Social media accounts dedicated to celebrity families posted updates about his life. Louis never chased this attention, but he understood it was part of the package. And in private moments away from cameras, away from expectations, Louis dreamed. Not of wealth, he already had that. Not of fame. He understood its cost. He dreamed of doing something meaningful with his life, something that would make his father proud. Yes, but something that would also make him proud of himself. He wanted to build a legacy with his own hands. And slowly, step by step, that legacy was beginning to take shape. As Louis stepped further into late adolescence, the quiet curiosity surrounding him evolved into something much larger. Football journalists began mentioning his name with growing frequency, not as a novelty, but as a prospect. Scouts attending youth matches didn't just glance at him, they studied him. They took notes. They whispered to one another when he made a pass that seemed too intelligent for his age, or when he controlled the tempo of a match as if he had been born on the pitch. It wasn't just his technique that captured attention, it was his composure. The Buffon composure. The same ice-calm presence Gianluigi displayed during Champions League nights and World Cup finals now flickered in Louis. Not as imitation, but as DNA. He carried himself like someone who had already lived through pressure. As if the weight of expectations had shaped him but never broken him. At home, his relationship with his father deepened in unexpected ways. Louis wasn't just learning how to live like a professional, he was learning how to think like one. The conversations at the dinner table evolved from simple advice to strategic discussions. How to manage a football career, how to handle agents, how to choose clubs based on development rather than fame, and how to protect long-term identity in a world that consumes young athletes too quickly. Gianluigi taught him that longevity was a skill, not just a destiny. Louis absorbed everything. He learned how to read contract language before most kids his age learned how to drive. He understood how image rights worked, why endorsement deals mattered, and why reputation could multiply or destroy a fortune. These are anti-lessons found in textbooks. They come from growing up inside the inner circle of elite sport, where mistakes have seven-figure consequences. But money never controlled Louis. It surrounded him, yes, It comforted him, yes, but it never occupied the center of his identity. He saw money as a tool. He saw football as a calling. And that became a defining part of his character. Still, the elements of luxury followed him everywhere. By the time he turned 17, Louis had experienced more of the world than most adults ever could. He had traveled through the Middle East, France, Italy, Monaco, and the Pacific Islands. He had stayed in penthouses overlooking glittering city skylines, in waterfront villas where the sea kissed the edge of private pools, and in secluded estates surrounded by vineyards, olive trees, and soft Mediterranean air. These trips weren't just holidays, they were chapters in his emotional evolution. They taught him that life could be peaceful, beautiful, slow. They gave him a sense of balance, reminding him that even though he lived under a legacy of fame, he could always find places where no one knew his face, where he could breathe without the shadow of expectation. Luxury brands quietly began reaching out, aware that young celebrity heirs often develop into major ambassadors. Louis had the face, the style, and the lineage for global campaigns. High-end watchmakers, Italian fashion houses, and sportswear giants began eyeing him as a future face of modern European luxury. He didn't say yes to everything. He was selective. His father taught him that your name should never be sold cheaply. Louis preferred collaborations that resonated with who he was. Timeless.com. Minimalistic and elegant. With this rising attention came a deeper evolution in his personality. He grew more private, more introspective, more protective of the things that truly mattered to him: family, ambition, and peace. The public saw the luxury trips and stylish photos, but they didn't see the hours he spent writing down his goals, reviewing his performances, and strategizing about his future career. Louis understood that the world was watching him grow. Every step he took had meaning. Every appearance shaped narratives. Every match he played carried whispers of comparison. But instead of running from his father's shadow, Louis slowly learned to treat it as shelter. A place to grow, not a place to hide. His football development accelerated rapidly. Coaches noticed how he never panicked when pressed, how he made quick decisions with effortless calm, how he understood tactical patterns at a level years ahead of his peers. He never played as if he was trying to prove something to the crowd. He played as if he was trying to prove something to himself. He wanted to earn respect, not inherit it. And then came the moment every young athlete dreams of: the growing certainty that he was edging toward a professional pathway. The transition was slow but undeniable. More responsibility, more minutes, more trust from coaches. He began participating in higher-level matches, training with older age groups, and showcasing a maturity that made it clear he was not just another young talent. He was a young Buffon with his own story to write. At this point, Louis's lifestyle balanced between youthfulness and quiet sophistication. On one hand, he enjoyed typical teenage life, hanging out with friends, gaming, music, exploring new cities. On the other hand, he lived a lifestyle far more refined. Dinners in Michelin-starred restaurants, yacht trips with family friends along the Italian coast, private fashion show invitations, and exclusive football events where he met legends he had grown up watching on TV. This duality became his identity. Down-to-earth heart, luxurious surroundings. He also developed a sense of awareness about his influence. Young fans began messaging him, asking for advice, looking up to him for inspiration. Louis responded when he could, always politely, always thoughtfully. He understood that fame isn't just a spotlight, it's a responsibility that demands humility. Meanwhile, the conversation around his future continued to intensify. Would he stay in Italy? Would he join an international academy? Would he follow modern trends and move to England, Spain, or Germany to forge a new reputation away from his father's homeland? Louis listened, but he never let the noise dictate his decisions. He was patient, he was observant, he was waiting for the right moment. What made Louis truly unique was his emotional depth. He didn't dream of becoming a superstar for attention or wealth. His dreams were anchored in meaning. He wanted to represent his family name with dignity. He wanted to show that he wasn't a product of privilege but a product of discipline. He wanted to step into the world with purpose, not entitlement. He wanted to stand on his own feet and say, "I earned this." That mindset shaped his financial understanding too. While still young, Louis already benefited from a structured wealth plan set by his father: trust funds, long-term investments, real estate stakes, and future inheritance. John Luigi's estimated net worth of $25 to $30 million positioned Louis not just for comfort, but for generational wealth. Yet Louis was determined to build his own financial identity. He studied entrepreneurship, personal branding, and sports management. He learned about investing in tech, clean energy, and luxury brands. He wanted to become more than a footballer. He wanted to become a modern global figure. This long-term vision extended even to charity. Louis had witnessed his father's generosity, from supporting hospitals to funding youth programs. He saw firsthand how quietly giving back could change lives. Louis knew that one day, when his own career reached its peak, he wanted to contribute to something meaningful, perhaps sports education, mental health programs for young athletes, or opportunities for underprivileged children who dream of becoming players. As he approached adulthood, Louis had something rare: clarity. He knew what he wanted, he knew who he was, and he knew where he was going, even if the exact path had not yet revealed itself. He didn't rush, he didn't panic. He moved with intention. Now, as the world watches the next chapter unfold, Louis stands on the edge of a future filled with potential. He carries the Buffon surname, not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. He walks with the calm confidence of someone raised in luxury, yet shaped by discipline. He trains with the hunger of someone who refuses to let privilege define him. He dreams with the quiet ambition of someone who understands that legacy isn't given it as crafted, day by day, decision by decision. Louis Thomas Buffon is not just the son of a legend, he is the rise of a new legacy. A legacy written with elegance, a legacy fueled by discipline, a legacy shaped by luxury, humility, and ambition. A legacy the world is only just beginning to witness. And as he steps forward into professional football, one truth remains clear: he is no longer living in his father's shadow. He is becoming the man who will one day cast his own.